Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. It's a beautiful Friday in Portland. My next door neighbor is coming into his office. And today I want to talk a little bit more about content systems. We titled this one Happy Little Content Systems, and I'm going to walk through that a little bit. I have a lot less hair than Bob Ross does. I want to spend 2 seconds talking about something on my screen, which is this Paula Abdul video. And I'm just going to spend 1 second on this and let me get this on the stage. Do y'all remember this video? Some of you, like, have you seen it maybe as a kid or, and it's Paula Abdul plus a cartoon cat dancing around. And they're talking about how they're really, really opposite and they're different. And one of them's loud and the other one's quiet. Anyway, I had ChatGPT make a little list of all of the stuff that they sing about. And go watch this video. It's called Opposites Attract. It's really fun. And Paula Abdul seems like the one who's really got it together here. And MC Scat Cat, the cartoon cat in this video, is the one who really has a little bit more trouble keeping his life together, but he's more fun. So anyway, we're in minute 1 of this. I figure I'd let you in on a little bit of what I'm thinking about these days, which is Paula Abdul videos and their psychological implications. But it's called Opposites Attract. It's a really fun video, fun song. Go listen to it. Okay, let's talk about content systems. So last week, we talked about the idea of a content system, and I mentioned a bunch of things. Let me just talk to you one-on-one here. The idea of a content system is that you can design a group of routines involving some technologies, involving some process, involving a bunch of other stuff that let you accomplish certain goals with your content, whatever those goals are, whether they're SEO or GEO or brand awareness more generally, or customer retention or sales enablement or whatever it is. But you can tie your content to specific goals, and you can use different designs to achieve those goals, different levels of investment. You have all these different inputs that you have, like your tech stack and your POV and your messaging and all this other stuff. And the big unlock for content systems, which have existed for a long time, people always have content systems of some kind if they don't want to acknowledge it. The big unlock is AI, because AI takes the unstructured, the language, the sentences, all of that stuff, and kind of turns it into something that we can put into a workflow and manage more programmatically, and spend more of our time on high context stuff, on interesting thoughts, white papers, data, customer quotes, customer interactions, interviews, all of that stuff, gather that stuff, and then we can put it in a system that generates lots of entry points to those ideas for people who have questions. So all of these things can fit together: your tech, your POV, your brand, your investments in the people you've hired to be your solutions engineers and your SMEs, all this other stuff. All that can fit together into a designable system that potentially creates certain outputs that you want. And that's a way to think about content now. And a lot of people thought about this for a long time, but AI is really changing the game there. And so what I showed you last week is what a very simple AI workflow could look like that supports your content system. And I'm going to actually bring it up here. Let's find my example. And this is built with a tool called N8N. And you're going to see, first you're going to see my Paula Abdul thing again. But then I'm going to share the correct tab and you're going to see this little workflow. And so this workflow is part of our content system. It's a thing that goes into our content system. And this workflow, what it does, it's built in this tool called N8N. It goes through, grabs a bunch of URLs from our library, filters all the URLs, loops over them, and then asks questions of AI. And you'll see these little X's here because I'm kind of in the middle of updating this one. But it asks AI questions about, hey, are there misspellings here? Last week we talked about using an AI workflow to find misspellings on your blog. Are there misspellings in here? Does this have an intro? what is the general topic of this post? You can see there's a prompt here. What's the general topic of this article? And then I provide it the article itself. So this can be what we call a content linter. So we're looking for kind of the lint in our content. This can be a really important part of how you manage content at scale, how you think about it in a more systematic way. And this can be a really important part of how you also scale up and produce more content, because you can take your high context things, your white papers, your data, your interviews, all that stuff, and you can put them on the left side of this workflow and provide them as inputs to a model that then gives us reasonable articles and other written artifacts that then we can edit instead of writing from scratch. So the content systems thing has always been a thing. It's about managing your content in a more thoughtful, structured way. AI is a huge unlock for people who have thought about content this way, and it gives us a very powerful tool to design these systems in a more usable, more reliable, more robust kind of a way. And this is an example of that, is this content linter that finds misspellings and other than that. So let's talk about a couple of other workflows that you can put in here, and then let's back off the whole idea of using a special tool for AI, and I'll show you that in a minute. But let's also look at documentation. So here's another example of a workflow that we built. And what this one does is it actually goes through documentation and figures out, oh, I have a product with a lot of help articles or a lot of code samples or whatever it is. And this goes through and it says, oh, what does this article explain to the user how to do? That's that prompt there. And we prompt for every single page in the documentation. So we can run 1,000 pages through this thing and get answers. And also, I'm going to provide you a couple of topics here, and I want you to tell me how to do it. I want you to tell me like how you would do the thing that's in our documentation without referring to the documentation. And then there's another piece here where we're going to ask, like, look at the documentation and compare the documentation to how you, the AI, think that you do the thing. And tell me if there are any differences between those two. What does this do for you as content? Well, this tells you, are your docs getting distributed? Are people finding them? What are the points of misunderstanding that people might have? Because an LLM is pulling information from lots of other places. And if you think about an AI workflow as input and output, you can both get something like this, where we're literally going through every single page and saying, how do LLMs think this thing happens? And what is the diff between what you think as an LLM? I'll just share this real quick. Here's what the spreadsheet looks like. What do you think as an LLM versus what's in the documentation? If you use this as input output, you could also see how the LLM could make suggestions on how to fix a thing in the documentation, or how to fix a thing on your website, or how to, let's say, share this tab instead, go through our old messaging, go through all the blogs and tell me, hey, if I look through the blog, everywhere on our website, we want to talk about observability instead of analytics. I'm going to provide you a page on our website below, return yes if this thing talks about analytics instead of observability, for example. So all of this unlocks ways to much more systematically manage your content. And this is one tool, but it's a really important tool because it makes all of this possible, versus before we got to do this all in spreadsheets. We got to do this all, sort of more manually, and we can't scale it, but now we can scale it. So those are some examples of how AI workflows fit into this content systems idea. And I want to talk a little bit more too about inputs and outputs. So I showed you this idea of a workflow built in this tool N8N that does all of these steps and is going out to AI and asking questions and getting the questions back. And you could also put other things in the workflow, like I want to get page data, or I want to figure out data from SEMrush and you could do all kinds of stuff there. But what if you used a different tool and you did something simple with, say, AirOps? So like, here's a very simple AirOps workflow, and this can be set up to do whatever you want. But one of the things this happens to do is grab a Google Doc and put it in WordPress for me. That's kind of cool. Like that kind of unlocks a lot around the editing process and means that we don't have to worry so much about kind of copying things over. And at scale, you really need stuff like this. So think about content systems also as a way to do stuff like, oh, I'm going to connect some systems together and make my job easier. Think about content systems as, see if I still have this open, as a very simple doc. Here's a Google Doc where, yes, this is involved with an AI workflow. And we have an AI workflow that picks up this doc, but you can take a database of your product marketing materials and your messaging and your customer quotes, all that stuff. And yes, you need AI for this part, but you can have very simple processes or workflows where AI is just doing some work with that data, and then you're putting it in a spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet is going into your CMS or whatever. So the title of today's live stream is Happy Little Content Systems, I think. And these are some examples of ways that you can build little subsystems for your content that do things like tell us if it's up to date from a messaging perspective, look for misspellings, but also update it, also add FAQs and answer the FAQs based on what's on it, do all of these things in a more systematic, structured kind of a way, and that these workflows, these subsystems, and that all fits into the broader concept of we have an opportunity to start thinking of our content as a system in general. And people have been doing this for a year. That's not new, but what is new is that we can take that as a much more systematic approach, a much stronger approach, and we can spend more time thinking about how do we design the content system to take the inputs that we have and the investment that we can make and the ideas that we have and all that stuff, and like put it together, build the workflows, build the AI, build the process, build the people talking to each other, hire the right people, invest the right budget, do all this stuff. And then on the other side, you get some of the outputs that you want, and it's specifically designed for that. And that's part of what those AI workflows help us do, and this new technology helps us do, is really enable that a lot more. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward. So anyway, that's my stream for today. I just wanted to, again, talk about like, here's what these workflows look like and all the things you can do. I'll continue to talk about that because there's huge amounts of possibility here. And then think about the ways that these can fit into a more structured, more process-driven way of scaling or of experimenting or of doing whatever else you want with the content and getting the outcomes that you want. So I think that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for being here. That is not what I want. What I want to sign off with is just this Paula Abdul video, which I'm going to go watch now. It's just amazing. Thanks, y'all. See you later.